My mother died using voluntary stopping of eating and drinking. That option was not presented to her by her physician, any of her physicians. She did it because my husband and I did research, including Dr. Quillen's very good article on that topic. But my question to Dr. Curlin is, or to both of you, is why doctors do not inform patients of this completely legal option? And would Dr. Curlin have the same objections to doctors informing patients of VSED as he does to physicians aid in dying?
I don't oppose doctors having frank and candid conversations with patients about the reality. You know, I don't oppose a doctor in California saying, we're in California, you guys asked me, what are my options now that I gave you this diagnosis? What are you concerned to know kind of end-of-life options? Explaining the reality of those options. I think that a good physician in California would say, you know, as a physician, I hope you'll choose a route in which we stay focused on how to bear with what faces you, and my role is to attend to what we can do within reason and within what fits for you. You have authority. I'm not going to do something to you without your permission. But what fits for you to care for your health, notwithstanding this diagnosis. I would not propose to patients voluntary stopping food and drinking just out of the blue. Like, because I'm not interested in them. I mean, that's, as a physician, I'm not oriented toward how to help them die. I'm oriented toward how to live in a way that fits their vocation, and so if they asked about it, I would talk to them about it, but I'm not going to offer it as a sort of standard set of options for everybody who's got terminal illness.
So the context of this discussion is usually the patient is asking you whether you provide assisted dying, and you might be saying, if you live in New York, you might be saying no because it's illegal, or if you lived in California and you thought this is not part of what I can do, you'd say no because I can't live with it. So then they might ask, well, what other options do I have? Or you might even say, well, would you like to know what other options there are that are legal? Because they're asking you something, and do they have to discover this on their own? Because it's completely counterintuitive. It's not something that makes a lot of sense at first. It takes a little while to wrap your mind around. But it is entirely under a patient's control. It's actually pretty hard to do. But it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's time for saying goodbye. You know, there's a lot of good stuff that can happen. And I have helped a number of people in New York State who would have much preferred to have assisted dying, but this was a legal option. We did it on our palliative care unit. We provided support for them, and again, we had to get our whole team to wrap their minds around it, make sure it was okay with the team, because this is on the edges, right? It's a different edge. It's a distinct edge from assisted dying, but it's another edge. But yes, but again, it's a legal edge. Probably it's never been tested, and it's really important to know about that, because a lot of folks, you say you could do this, great, okay, well, I'll put that in my pocket, and now I'm less afraid, right? And I might go another 6 months or a year, but I could pull this trigger when I want to. And for people who are oriented this way, they are in control people. This is a huge gift, potentially.
Thanks. And I'll take the last question from in the left. Yes.
Blue shirt.
I think it's green. Is that red? Yes.
It's blue shirt. My question is
We should have let you guys know in advance. That was the key.
Thank you both for your presentations. My question is for Dr. Quill. You mentioned briefly responding to the Not Dead Yet movement, but I was wondering if you respond more directly to some of the questions raised by those living with disabilities and their advocates, particularly whether societal support of physician-assisted suicide is, in certain key ways, societal support for physicians and healthcare more generally, determining that certain lives aren't worth living, lives that share deep similarities with those living and flourishing with severe intellectual and physical disabilities.
So the place where I have most in common with people who who are from Not Dead Yet, and again, I have good friends who are not dead yet.
That's part of the nature. It's not good.
Because they are extremely autonomy oriented, right? They are very autonomy oriented. You're not going to tell me what I can do and can't do. And by the way, I not only do I not like assisted dying, I also don't like the fact that you can stop life supports. Because I might be on a life support. Maybe I am on a life support. I don't like you telling me that I could stop that. Because it makes me feel like you might be wanting to kill me because I'm too expensive. So I can have a conversation with a person from Not Dead Yet around that. Again, private conversations are different from public conversations, because when you're debating this, it's a different conversation. But I fully, the part of what I talk about that they really appreciate is the real attention to individual autonomy and choice. They would like to have certain choices taken off the table, and not just assisted dying, but stopping life supports. That should be off the table, because people on life supports are really expensive, they're very vulnerable, they might be coerced to stop life supports, all of which is true, right? They could be pressured to do that, but what's the best protection? Well, you put together an open process, and you make sure that you get second opinions, and you get psychiatry involved in tough cases and all that stuff. And so, you know, we've had a long-standing ventilator-dependent guy who was very public in our community decided that he wanted to stop life supports, and we went and Not Dead Yet was very involved in this in a protesting way, and we went through lots of different machinations to make sure this guy was really sure that he wanted to stop. You know, we had psychiatry involved, a couple different psychiatrists, we had ethics involved, all kinds of things. Ultimately, we allowed him to stop. But these issues are conflated in this population with good reason. But in my opinion, the best protections are second opinions, open processes, really documenting really exactly what you're doing.
The disability community, I think a good reason is not very confident in processes and institutions and committees and experts, because those are all inhabit the same cultural context in which Brittany Maynard, when she's beautiful and shining, is having a life worth living, and when she anticipates she's going to be bloated and diminished, it just seems like there's nothing left there. So I think history tells us we should be wary of, you know, good progressive folks who want to use institutional processes to do something as decisive as decide who lives and dies.
And this is, we're not the ones deciding, right? It is the patient. We are allowing the patient to decide. We are being complicit, right? But we are not the ones deciding. This is not something we bring up. In point of fact, we don't like it when people bring it up. It's actually pretty hard to do under the best of circumstances.
It is. There's no way to end this with a consensus. There is. I think what I'd like to end is I hope this would have been an occasion where each of you, everyone here, got to hear a voice from maybe the side they don't usually hear from as much, and to think about, we're in a world where we hear people, we cluster a lot, and we hear a lot of the voices that are in our own familiar world. I hope this is a chance that all of us got to hear from that other world and to think about our positions on this. We balance the different kinds of polarizations and values that our two speakers talked about. There is going to be food and hydration awaiting the reception next door, and I would like to very much thank Dr. Quill and Dr. Curlin.